The inner realm, the manifestation of the spirit of the target. You exhibit your technique, then let that energy enter the target's body. He thought that the power of this soul seal is much more terrifying than Su Tuo's. It should be at least 100 times stronger, if not even 1,000 times stronger. For a young man like him to be able to use this soul seal, it shattered his spirit and made him disperse. After finishing the task, the target spoke up. Vong Tru Dien, the next thing requires someone to do it. He immediately knelt down and said, "You go ahead and assign it." The target replied, "Lord Dap holds the king secretly, listening to my orders. Unified the Tan Chao region." He was surprised and asked if Tan Chao was much stronger than Thien Nguyen. The target confidently replied, "Of course, I know that. So, I will provide you with everything you need to accomplish your goal. As long as you have external power to help, there should be no problem." Vong Tru Dien listened and said, "To control Tan Chao, there are 3 conditions. You said it. First, I need a lot of money to help me easily obtain the position of the king. Second, I need a group of martial artists with real strength, at least they must be at the level of the Tran Tu Hop Dao the Trong. Third, I need some martial arts and techniques." After hearing the 3 conditions, the target calmly replied, "No problem. I will provide you with enough martial arts and techniques. As for other matters, you will handle them." He was very surprised when the target spoke lightly like this. Then the target continued, "Is the realm of Dia Gi Ku Pham enough?" He was surprised and asked, "What is the realm of Dia Gi Ku Pham?" The target confidently replied, "The realm of Dia Gi Ku Pham is as much as you want. If it's not enough, there is still the realm of Thien Gi." He immediately replied, "Enough, enough." Then the target raised his hand to his head and handed over the martial arts and technique contract. "I will arrange for someone to bring them to you. I will give you half a year. Remember, only half a year." He replied, "Yes." Before leaving, the target said, "I want to remind you of something. My soul contract has been broken. The next time he will definitely come to bother you." The target calmly replied, "If he wants to die, I will fulfill his wish." He reminded the target, but he couldn't be too complacent. "My cultivation is unfathomable." The target turned and asked him, "What do you think of my cultivation?" He answered, "You are very strong, but compared to my master Su Tuo, I'm afraid you are still far behind." The target asked him, "If your master arrives here at this time, how long will he take to calculate?" He replied, "About a month." After receiving the answer, the target silently thought, "A month is enough time for me to consolidate the power of the thunder spirit in my body. If everything goes smoothly, I might break through to the Tai Ko Toi the Kui level. By that time, my cultivation can be as powerful as the Din Fong Gi." The target became excited. "What's there to be afraid of?" Vong Tru Dien looked at the target and wondered, "I can't see through him completely. I can't see through him at all. What kind of person is he in the end?" The target told him, "You can go now. You should handle this matter. I don't need to say much." He replied, "I understand." Then he left. The target also turned to Xiao He and said, "Let's go, Xiao He." Xiao He happily barked. Then the target and Xiao He left together. Vong Tru Dien's followers ran up and asked, "Son, are you okay?" He answered coldly, "I'm fine." The fat guy asked, "What happened earlier? We felt an extremely terrifying power." He replied, "It's nothing. Elder Fat and Elder Thin, the 2 of them were with me. I have some things to assign to them." They immediately obeyed the order. As Vong Tru Dien walked a little further, he asked eagerly, "Has the second brother been killed by those 2? Elder Fat and Elder Thin remained silent and said nothing. Vong Tru Dien continued, "It's okay, it's okay. I have always understood the intentions of you 2. Now there is still one thing that requires the help of you 2. You 2, come closer." Then he murmured to the 2 elders. After listening for a while, they immediately took action. They returned to where the others are waiting and says it's done. Tam Kong instructed us to go back earlier than planned, and they immediately obeyed the order. They immediately turn around to leave. Immediately after that, the techniques were continuously performed, and they were ambushed by the fat and skinny elder. The 2 men in front turned back to look. They were afraid and ran for their lives, shouting in panic. The fat elder reacted and used his skill. The 2 of them were immediately trapped in a red whirlpool and died. After dealing with the men as ordered by the royal dynasty, the 2 men kneeled in front of him and said they were willing to jump into the scorching fire for Tam Kong. Now we return to the prince. Regarding this matter, we believe in the intelligence of the fat elder and the skinny elder, and they surely understand everything. They immediately responded, "Tam Kong is more ruthless than we thought. When he heard this, he laughed heartily. At a forest named Feng Vo Dao, a group of people kneeled before Tiyu then and greeted the Heavenly Lord, congratulating the Heavenly Lord on obtaining the power of thunder. Feng Vo Dao said, "Senior, you used a strong martial skill earlier. Ha ha ha, can you teach me?" Tiyu then replied, "It depends on your health. If you explode and die before harming others, then you might teach you good martial skills previously transmitted to you. Let's talk about the future later." Hearing this, he seemed disappointed. Tiyu then continued, "If everyone is willing to join Tan Van Man, we will surely rise in the future. Just follow the arrangements of Feng Vo Dao." They responded. The purple-haired man and the brown-haired man secretly thought that this Heavenly Lord is indeed powerful. Feng Vo Dao invited us, and we are not concerned about it. Tiyu then continued to assign tasks to Feng Vo Dao. Your task during this time is to build a powerful intelligence network that covers the entire martial arts world. They obeyed. Alright, you can step back now. They immediately left. Tiyu then disappeared as well. At Tan Van Man, Don Tu Luong spoke up, "Senior is truly amazing. Didn't expect to have such a big gain from this trip." Haha, so King Tan Chao is probably scared of being angered. Tiyu then replied, "It's their own doing." Right, Don Tu Luong said, "Next, I have to retreat for a month. Remember, during my retreat, it is the most important time for cultivation. No one should disturb me." Don Tu Luong replied respectfully, "Senior, I understand." Before leaving, Tiyu then gave a final instruction. During this time, handle any trivial matters of Tan Van Man, then. He replied, "I understand." After Tiyu then left, he thought to himself that with the continuous efforts of the senior of Tan Van Man, the Quat Koi was only a matter of time. Also had to grasp the timing to cultivate 2V, to advance into the harmonious path as soon as possible, so the senior won't fall behind. Tiyu then began his retreat to cultivate the Nguyen Hop Nyat, Kuk Dao Vo Kung, natural techniques, calm the mind and spirit. The little black is also by his side, guarding during Tiyu then's retreat. All gather in the pill field. Tiyu then shouted loudly. Once in, instantly release the heavenly pill power. Theme Chu lightning struck immediately. A month later, there was a call from the master. Vong Tru Dien knelt in front of his master and said, "You finally come." In response, the master only glanced at Vong Tru Dien disdainfully. Vong Tru Dien continued, "I've been waiting for you for a long time, please make me the leader, master." At this time, Thiet Vo Dik interjected, "It seems that my disciple knows how to act." He pointed at Vong Tru Dien and sternly said, "Until today, you still dared to speak the truth." Vong Tru Dien appeared naive and replied, "Master, you misunderstood me, that is the influence of the divine essence." "The divine essence is indeed profound, my disciple is truly helpless," Vong Tru Dien continued. "Only by preserving our lives can we wait for your arrival," he said. After his deceptive words, Thiet Vo Dik was not moved at all. He spoke eloquently and even mentioned the soul contract with Tiyu Than. "We have never seen such a contract before. In essence, it is impossible for us to break it, waiting for us to kill Tiyu Than and then owe a debt to you." Then Thiet Vo Dik pointed at Vong Tru Dien and said angrily, "Quickly call your father over here." He immediately left, leaving his master waiting for a moment. On the way, he worriedly said, "It was too dangerous just now, it's not easy to mess with our master." He wondered what happened. "Why didn't you reply?" He looked at the message stone and only saw his own messages without any response from Tiyu Than. On this side, Tiyu Than is still practicing to break through. Tiyu Hak beside him thought to himself, "The master is favored. Why are you so slow? You're too weak," he said. At this moment, Tiyu Than had closed his eyes. Then suddenly, he opened his eyes wide, causing Tiyu Hak to cower in fear. He turned and said to it, "Little one, you must be enjoying this, right?" Then Tiyu Than stood up, delighted, saying, "Finally, a breakthrough." He broke through. In his secret place, Tiyu Than closed his eyes and contemplated. The third stage of Taiko Toi is comparable to the cultivation of the peak of the heavenly Tao. Tiyu Than confidently said, "Now, I may be able to use the second power of the heavenly emperor's power." Then Tiyu Than closed his eyes to sense. If the first power of the heavenly emperor's power is the power to destroy all enemies by opening up the heavens and the earth, then the second power seems to be a vast universe that cannot be predicted. It appears peaceful, but in fact, the whole world is under my control, and no one can escape or shake it. Tiyu Hak barked, and Tiyu Than said, "So, you want to test your strength against me?" Tiyu Hak enthusiastically agreed. Tiu then immediately accepted the challenge, saying, "Don't be afraid. I'm not the main character if I'm afraid of you." Then the two of them left. The power of Tiu then and Tiu hack caused the hall to start cracking. It spread to the floor, making a cracking sound. Beyond the mountain, Tiu then said to Tiu hack, "Show me all your courage." Tiu hack made a sound and then immediately transformed into a giant. It opened its mouth, creating a strong suction force that startled Tiu then. Tiu then was also affected by the force and exclaimed, "Wow, this suction force is excellent." Not satisfied yet, Tiu hack made its mouth even bigger to create a stronger suction force. Excitedly, it said, "Formidable, formidable." Then Tiu then began to counterattack, using his protective shields. It shocked the law of darkness to create a big explosion. Little Black was pushed back by the explosion. Then, Little Black regained his momentum and moved forward. Tiu Shen praised his imposing momentum. There were lightning bolts under Tiu Shen's feet and clouds formed. Tiu Shen was surprised by this. These lightning and clouds are created by Lei Cloud. Suddenly, a large lightning bolt appeared. Tiu Shen was shocked. Clouds quickly covered Tiu Shen's location. Tiu Shen stepped back and evaded. He looked at Little Black and said, "Did you bring Tam Huyan Kin Lei with you?" Little Black happily responded. Tiu Shen silently thought that the special powers of Tien Ddbian would be born. He had seen the power of Tam Huyan Kin Lei and the 5 elements Cancun power before. The fire brought out by Little Black must be Tam Huyan Kin Lei. However, Tam Huyan Kin Lei can only be performed by someone who has broken through to the Great Emperor realm. It can create a special phenomenon in the sky and unleash the power of lightning. Tiu Shen looked at Little Black's tricky expression and thought that although the power of this kid's lightning is not strong, the pure power of thunder and lightning cannot be mistaken. What secret does he have? Last time it was not just Tam Huyan Kin Lei, there was also a bit of 9 mysterious fire. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but laugh out loud and said, "It seems that you have many secrets. Let me see how strong you really are." Little Black continued to howl. It brought down another thunder. Tiu Shen cursed in surprise, not another transformation. Little Black clenched his teeth. Its eyes turned red and a dragon figure appeared behind him. Tiu Shen saw this and said, "Based on this murderous aura alone, even the strong ones at the Hep Dao Luke Trong will be threatened." Suddenly, he remembered. "I remember now. When I was in the celestial realm, I heard a rumor that there is another land outside the world, where the ethical laws are completely different from ours, especially for martial artists. There are countless powerful ones. Not only is there power, but there must also be opportunities and luck to enter. It is said that the world there does not have humans, only demons and beasts roaming. In that world, there is a demon called Chaos, who can be called the master of that land. Chaos was born from heaven and earth and can communicate with all things on the world. It has a total of 30 descendants. Another thing is that Chaos has swallowed all living creatures, especially the dragons, the most powerful divine beasts. Does Little Black come from there? If that's really the case, this world will be in chaos. Creatures from other realms will come to our martial world, which is still at the bottom of the martial hierarchy. Thinking deeply, the only possibility is that our martial world is too weak, as it facilitates the easy growth of Little Black. When Little Black grows up, it can directly conquer the martial world and even the entire universe. Thinking of this, Tiu Shen exclaimed, "Little one, are you really going to terrorize like that?" Little Black looked puzzled. Then Tiu Shen laughed, "Haha, as the Yuxian of the universe, I'm surprised that I worry too, unlike myself. Even if Little Black is truly the descendant of Chaos, it is still my friend. Come here, Little Black." Little Black immediately rushed towards Tiu Shen. They exchanged blows, creating large circles of light. It even attracted lightning bolts from the sky. After a brief battle, Little Black was defeated and fell to the ground, crying and wailing. Tiu Shen was also slightly injured, his clothes torn. It was terrifying. "I used all my strength, but I could only reluctantly defeat this little guy. If he continues, I won't be able to fight back." Tiu Shen thought to himself, "I am indeed worried. I used all my strength and could only reluctantly defeat this little guy, who is still my friend after all." Xiao He sighed, feeling tired. Suddenly, Tiao Shen received a message. He hurriedly urged Xiao He to go. "Come on, let's go to work." At the emperor's palace, the emperor immediately knelt down. He said, "Why didn't you inform me before coming?" Fei Wudi turned around and said, "What are you saying? How could I come here without you knowing?" He replied, "No, you can come here anytime. It's our honor." Fei Wudi announced, I came this time without informing you because there is a big matter to deal with. Then, the old man pointed at him and said, during this time, Your Excellency must cooperate fully with me. Understand? He immediately agreed and asked for instructions, promising to follow them. Fei Wudi approached and said, I need your army now. Call all the powerful warriors with the strength at least of 8 tribulations to come here. The man was shocked and asked again. The old man replied, Call all of them here right now. All clan leaders quickly gather in the Grand Hall of Assembly. They immediately received the order, We will come immediately. Gather all the clan leaders. The 8 tribulations warriors. Fei Wudi slammed the table and said, Good. I didn't expect that there would be 8 tribulations warriors among the warriors of the emperor. Interesting, ha ha. All the 8 tribulations warriors knelt down to pay respect to their master, saying, Good, good. The emperor bowed and politely asked his master, Thank you for your praise. They have all gathered, please give your orders. The old man replied, After this, we have something to do. All of you will follow me to Tanvanman. No matter what situation you encounter there. There is only one objective. Annihilate Tanvanman. Not a single one should be spared. Hearing this, the emperor asked his master, You mean Tanvanman? Are you sure? It's just a tiny Tanvanman. So why should you bother to take action personally? It's really laughable. In that case, I will easily send someone there to wipe out the entire sect. The old man frowned, looked at him, and questioned, What did you say? Are you doubting me? The man trembled with fear and stammered, I don't dare to doubt or question you, master. Hearing this, the old man turned around and said, You, send your son to follow me. He lost the battle due to arrogance and undervaluing the enemy. His eyes turned cold as he added, This time, if I don't bring enough people and we really fail, consider you finished. The emperor quickly replied, I understand my mistake. Tiao Shen relayed a message to Vong Tru Dien, lead them through the Tien Pass before reaching Tanvanman. Vong Tru Dien finished reading the message and silently thought, What plan does he have now? Haha, another interesting game to watch. The first line is Tuyen Thien, the leading one is the undefeated old man. The leading one is the undefeated old man. The leading one is the undefeated old man. Following behind are the father and son of the Vong family. Father Vong Trien asks the young prince why we can't go directly to Tanvanman and have to go through Tuyen Thien. The young prince explains that this path is chosen by the master in order to launch a surprise attack. Father Vong still feels something is not right despite his son's explanation. Vong Trien smiles with hidden implications. Thiet Vo Din moves forward and scolds them for being slow. He asks them to hurry up. They respond, Yes, master. Tiu Tan and Tiu Hak are waiting on top of the mountain. Tiu Tan speaks up, saying that with the combined forces of 8 small sects, he will deal with that undefeated opponent. The others can handle the rest. Tiu Hak agrees with a blink of an eye. Tiu Tan thinks to himself that the opponent is very strong, though he is only at the Hop Dao Din Fong level. A simple wave of his hand or foot can create enough power to destroy everything. It seems like he has broken through to a new realm. They must defeat him quickly. If they are defeated in battle, it will be extremely disadvantageous for him. But even if they are defeated, so what? Honestly, he is a bit looking forward to being defeated. Thiet Vo Din suddenly stops. He narrows his eyes, sensing something. The old man senses that Tiu Tan has arrived. The Vong Jia asks why they stopped. The old man laughs and says that the person has arrived. Vong Trien has also made calculations for himself. The old man thinks to himself, What a terrifying gaze, like lightning. This Tiu Tan is indeed very strong, but he is alone. That's not correct. That dog is also not ordinary. It seems that today, extra caution is required. Accuracy is crucial, no mistakes allowed. Xiao He lay motionless, giving a sly glance at the old man and chuckling mischievously. The old man immediately spoke loudly, Lord of Heaven, if you've arrived, why do you have to descend with such pomp and circumstance? The group of cultivators were all startled upon hearing this. What could it possibly be? The celestial quickly flew down. You immediately landed in front of the old man. Xiao He followed suit. The two stood in front of them. The celestial spoke, You can also do that? Yet you were still able to detect us. The old man let out a sneer. It seems we have infiltrators among us. No need to say more, you're already my good disciple, Celestial, Tiu then replied. The old man looked towards his disciple and sarcastically said, You think highly of yourself. Do you really believe that just relying on you and this dog, you can deal with me? Xiao He, being called a dog, immediately got angry and barked loudly. Tiu then replied, "Not only can I deal with you, but I can also kill you." The old man disdainfully said, "You arrogant little brat. I will deal with the Lord of Heaven. You join forces to deal with that dog." "Don't disappoint me," Tiu then said. The group of cultivators hesitated upon hearing this. Xiao He confidently chuckled wickedly. The father of the royal dynasty, Dean Vong, silently thought that this person really didn't value us. Dean Vong looked at Xiao He and realized that this black dog was even stronger. Tiu then remained silent. The old man, full of determination, immediately moved to attack and take control of the Thuong Fong, Heavenly Supreme Peak. After blocking one of his attacks, Tiu then commented on his strong cultivation. The old man continued with his move, but Tiu then quickly avoided it. As the fight between Tiu then and the unmatched old man began, Xiao He's body started transforming, emitting a fiery glow. It gnashed its teeth, growling fiercely. Then it transformed into a large beast. The group of cultivators were shocked. Seeing this, the king immediately reminded everyone to be cautious of the power of this beast. The king shouted in shock and ran away. Xiao He unleashed a powerful attack, creating an energy ball. The king shouted in horror and scattered. At the same time, Xiao He emitted a terrifying blast of power. This blast swept away any obstacles in its path. The group of cultivators attacked Xiao He together. "Die, you monster!" Xiao He swung its tail to create a shield. Then, the attackers were hit back by their own power, even stronger than before. The unmatched old man shouted, "Lord of Heaven, prepare for my next move." He executed the masterful technique, 8-level earthly art technique. Tiu then, manifesting disdain, countered with a basic attack. Both powers were evenly matched. The unmatched old man furrowed his brows. The old man said, "Even with the 8-level earthly art technique, you can't do anything. You truly are powerful. You can withstand a move like that just relying on your physical strength." "Not bad." Tiu Shan tightly held the hand and responded, "Not bad at all." The old man immediately took off his robe, which is good, it's been a long time since I met someone who can train. The old man took off his outer robe, revealing a strong and rugged physique. He said that the ordinary martial artist's body is weak and feeble, and it has been a long time since he had a real fight. The old man chuckled maliciously, his sturdy body making crackling sounds. Tiu Shan saw this and responded, "Unexpectedly, your divine intelligence is the mysterious Kai." The old man responded, "Not wrong, it is indeed the famous defensive power of Huyan Kai." Immediately after that, his form appeared as a coiled turtle and a coiled snake. "Since I entered Dao, I have rarely encountered any opponent with the same cultivation level who can break through my defense." Tiu Shan confidently pointed at him and said, "Today you have met your match. Good, let's continue." The old man's sharp gaze immediately rushed to attack Tiu Shan. Tiu Shan also responded powerfully. The old man smoothly avoided Tiu Shan's moves. Tiu Shan also skillfully dodged the old man's attacks. The powerful expert below was amazed. "Wow, they are fighting fiercely over there." Bong Tru Dean also exclaimed, "It's terrifying, relying solely on their bodies, they can have such strong power and fight against each other with no clear winner." Thiet Vo Dik and Tiu Shan flew higher to continue fighting. Bong Tru Dean's father felt the danger and shouted, "Danger, quickly run away." Both immediately jumped high to avoid the attacks. Bong Tru Dean thought to himself, "Should I change to a martial body?" The little black on this side quickly dodged. Thiet Vo Dik and Tiu Shan are now evenly matched. Tiu Shan remains calm and unaffected in the fireball created by Thiet Vo Dik. The old man thought to himself that this young boy's body seems to be stronger than mine, but my cultivation level is definitely higher than his. Suddenly, he shouted, "What is this?" He was injured in his hand. Tiu Shan laughed triumphantly, "Haha, it seems that your defense has its limits." The old man was scared and sweating. Tiu Shan flew up high and unleashed a powerful technique, causing Thiet Vo Dik to feel overwhelmed. "This kid is really good." Tiu Shan launched a powerful attack directly at the old man. The old man cried out in pain. He was hit by Tiu Shan's attack and was sent flying. He fell to the ground. He tried to lift his head and asked, "What technique is this?" Tiu Shan stood in front of him and said, "If you want to learn, I will teach you." The old man wiped the blood from his mouth and said, very good, very good. A very poisonous person indeed, worthy of being my disciple. I admit that your martial art is very strong, but do you really think that you can defeat me with just this little technique?" You are too naive. Tiu Shan responded, not bad. It is the first time someone at your level can receive this technique from me without being injured. Do you have anything else to show me? The old man's body suddenly ignited. Then he revealed his true form. You really don't know your own strength, you little brat. The old man jumped up and stomped. Jumping high, his hands were raised in front once again. On the dark side, Mr. Wang saw the dark dog attacking his son, and he shouted in alarm. What's going on? That black dog always gives way when he sees the prince. And the prince seems to be disguising himself. While deep in thought, the dark dog suddenly attacked him. Fortunately, he dodged it in time. He thought to himself, that speed is too fast, it's hard to avoid it. But how did the prince manage to avoid it so quickly, as if he knew the enemy's attack in advance? Could it be that the prince... At this moment, the dark dog opened its mouth and a lightning-filled ball appeared. Witnessed by his father and other powerful figures, Prince Trudine jumped up and shouted, Master, be careful. It's dangerous. Run away quickly. After the loud shout of Prince Trudine, there was a big explosion, which caused the bodies of the powerful figures of the combining Dao 8 Trung to fly apart. King Vong Jia secretly thought, the power of the three mysterious thunder scriptures is indeed powerful. Everyone couldn't resist it, but it didn't harm the prince. Everyone was worried about Ngai and bravely rushed forward to protect him. True Nhi seemed to know the range of the thunder attack in advance and quickly moved to the side. At this moment, he realized and said, Indeed, lucky for you, Prince True Nhi. On the side of the Tiu then, the invincible old man continued to attack, saying, Next, I will use this move, taught to me by your master. This technique originally had 18 moves, but most of them were useless. I have condensed it into 2 moves over the past 30 years. Tiu then calmly replied, it's not a bad move. Angry, the old man said to the young man, You don't know your limits, you're going to die. A giant hand fell from the sky. This move of the old man was called Vengeful Thunderstrike, and it carried tremendous force. Preparing to crush Tiu then. The pressure from the technique caused the rocks and earth around to explode. Even Tiu then was forced out by the explosion. And he was thrown high in the air. Nevertheless, Tiu then remained confident in himself, saying, The Vengeful Thunderstrike, how impressive. There's some interest in it. Thinking to himself, Tiu Hak advised his master not to underestimate the enemy. The remaining combining Dao 8 Trung figures were also astonished. The power is so strong. Tiu then also felt it. He said, The power is too strong. A loud sound echoed. The undefeated old man approached, laughing wickedly. He asked the young man, Are you ready? Then he activated his internal energy and shouted, Next, my second disciple, go. Hatred of the heavens, infinite void. The power he used this time was even stronger than before, creating a shocking explosion. Tiu Hak had to stay in one place, using a shield to protect himself. He thought, too strong, even the shield is about to collapse. The remaining combining Dao figures were also thrown into the air. Vong Tru Dien exclaimed in shock, The force is too strong. It has surpassed the combined forces of the combining Dao figures. After that, the undefeated old man laughed loudly. Confidently, he said, You are indeed strong, but you are still weaker than me. Although your physical strength is stronger than mine, the difference in cultivation level between us will never be compensated. Vong Tru Dien hid in a crevice in the mountain, thinking that it wouldn't be easy for him to be defeated like this. His soul imprint was still intact. Then he panicked when he didn't see the celestial essence. After processing the celestial essence, the old man turned to the dark boy and continued to the next victim. Then it stood up and growled at the old man, suddenly sensing something bad approaching. A martial art from the sky was rushing towards the old man's position. This martial art, none other than the celestial essence, was used to counterattack the old man. The old man quickly dodged the blow. The force that the martial art had just exerted was quite strong. It collided with the ground and created a loud explosion that pushed the old man away. The celestial essence appeared in the sky. He said, Indeed, the ordinary 9th grade martial art has no effect on you. Why are you so confident? The celestial essence slowly touched the ground. He responded, confident in the invincibility. The old man looked at the celestial essence and thought quietly, Both of us used only 9 parts of our strength, and this scoundrel didn't suffer any harm. It's terrifying. If the next strike has an even greater variable, although he can't injure me, I wonder what kind of cultivation technique he is practicing. At this moment, the old man spoke, You are indeed powerful. I have to resort to tricks. The celestial essence boldly responded, Come and wait for me." The old man stretched his body and took a deep breath. Then he laughed triumphantly and showed his true powerful strength. The celestial essence shouted loudly and covered his ears. The palace in the distance was frightened, covering their ears with their hands. Others were also confused and didn't understand what was happening. The old man began to tense his body, looking up at the sky, and shouted loudly. A deafening sound filled the air. The celestial essence noticed and quickly ran away. Those nearby were wrapped in the powerful sound force and were thrown far away. The palace people tried to cover their ears and use their strength to avoid being blown away. The dark boy also had to create a barrier to avoid being injured. After a while, it finally ended. The old man fell to the ground, groaning in pain. The palace people were also shocked. The celestial essence commented, "The throat of this brainless fool is wider than the sky itself." The smoke spread, and the celestial essence was surprised to see that the old man was nowhere to be found. The old man had already run a distance away. The celestial essence was shocked that he ran away. As for the old man, he was putting in all his effort to run. The celestial essence saw this and said, "This shameless scoundrel is truly the most shameless martial artist I have ever met. Cowardly and shameless." Vong Tru Dien was also surprised to see the old man running away. It wasn't expected that his master would run away. The celestial essence immediately positioned himself to chase after him. "Are you asking for death, running away like that?" Immediately, the celestial essence chased after the old man. In just a moment, the celestial essence had already caught up. He said, "Are you ready to die?" He gritted his teeth in anger, cursing the brat. A punch was rushing towards the old man, said the celestial essence. This punch from the celestial essence directly caused his lips to bleed. Then he rolled on the ground, groaning in pain. Then the old man continued to run, cursing in pain. The celestial essence said sternly, "It seems you still don't understand." He flew right in front of him. The old man gnashed his teeth angrily and rushed over, annoyingly. The god of destruction retaliated and made the old man spew out his essence. Then he fell to the ground. The old man wailed in pain. He gasped for breath, tired, while the god of destruction thought that this despicable person's body was sturdy. If he continued like this, it would be difficult to kill him. It seemed that he could only use his ultimate move. The god of destruction immediately raised his hand and summoned his power. "You won't be able to die under my attack. It's considered a blessing for 3 lifetimes. The old man stepped back in fear and warned, "Don't bully people too much." The god of destruction said confidently, "If I'm oppressing someone, what's wrong with that?" The old man frowned and said, "If you can't escape, then I'll leave. You'll be sorry for your actions." Then he cursed and it seemed that he had to use the artifact. The old man stood up straight and pointed to the sky. Continuing to tense his muscles, his eyes glowing, he shouted loudly. His whole body glowed like a miniature sun. After a while, the old man was dressed in additional armor. The old man laughed and said in satisfaction, "Hee hee, you forced me." The god of destruction remained calm and said, "Oh, you have armor. This is your last card, right? Let me tell you, this armor is still a top-grade artifact, the 9th rank. Not only can it increase my defense, but it also multiplies my power." Then the old man looked at the god of destruction with a menacing gaze. The old man started his resentment attack against the god of destruction. The god of destruction confidently said, "Let me make it clear to you." He used the heavenly emperor's fist. The old man used his resentment attack to resist. The heavenly emperor's fist of the god of destruction was incredibly powerful. It made the old man motionless in his tracks. The old man stood still and watched as the god of destruction's martial arts approached. He wondered, is this an illusion? This freezing effect on time has never been seen before. The power surged and destroyed the old man's armor. Within a few short seconds, the old man was left without a piece of armor and he was thrown far away. Then he crashed into a rock, causing a big explosion. Why did the explosion leave the old man sitting there injured? This can't be. How could the 9th rank armor be shattered so easily? The god of destruction immediately chased after him. He said, "You have become too weak." The old man reached out to stop him and said, "Don't kill me. I am willing to submit to you as long as you spare me." The god of destruction decisively replied, "You're not worthy." He punched straight towards the old man. The old man shouted, "You can't kill me." Then the old man used his clone to dodge the blow. Taking advantage of Tu Then's temporary vulnerability, the old man flew away. Before escaping, the old man turned back and laughed loudly, "Ha ha ha. You didn't expect it, did you? My power is not just one. Then the old man split into three. Afterwards, he left and Tiu then said, "Oh, it turned out to be a twin god. It's a shame to kill someone, hee. Your trickery, my divine one." Tiu Tan uses the second thunderous authority. This power of Tiu Tan rushes towards me. Once again, the space seems to stop. Don't understand what's happening. The other consequences of mine have all disappeared. In the mountain rift, I fatigue and place my hand on the tired rock. Tiu Tan appears before me. I told you, you can't escape. I won't kill you with my power, but with the consequences you have caused. I reply in disbelief. How can there be such a terrifying martial art technique? I don't believe it. Tiu Tan raises his hand, places his hand on my head. I let out a cry. A black demonic energy emerges. Tiu Tan immediately extracts my soul. Immediately, Quang Vo Tien held the jade and sent a message. He watched the video again and confirmed that the heavenly champion had been killed by the death god. He shattered into 100 pieces, and he frowned and muttered in disbelief. As he finished speaking, the death god jumped out. He looked very excited. After obtaining the soul of the heavenly champion, the death god looked at the soul in his cold hand and said indifferently, "This soul, besides its physical body, seems to have no other effects. But keeping it for Li Tinvan is also fine," he said as he quickly drew a circle in the air with his finger. This circle was full of intricate patterns, like a spell. Then, he pinned the soul of the heavenly champion to it, and from the death god's hand, a talisman appeared. In this way, the death god directly sealed the soul. As soon as the sealing was completed, the death god lifted his leg. He then stomped heavily on the body of the heavenly champion, causing him to vomit blood and fall. With a groan, he fell into a deep sleep. From then on, he only saw the heavenly champion appear on the 1st and 15th of each month. After that, the body of the heavenly champion began to turn into stone and then cracked. The death god coldly turned away. After the death god walked a short distance, the body of the heavenly champion exploded, and a cloud of smoke rose. On a mountainside near the death god, Vong Tru Dien was standing with his arms crossed, looking coldly at his father. Beside him were the corpses lying around. His father murmured, "Well done, you are my son." At this time, Vong Tru Dien's father was lying injured on the ground, trying to speak. "Your heart is vicious. Even your own father is being used." Vong Tru Dien smiled faintly in response to his father's words. "Father, we are family. Is it difficult to hear that we use each other?" After speaking, he smiled and looked at his father. Suddenly, the death god descended from above, causing Vong Tru Dien to turn and look, then make a surprised sound. Seeing his master appear, Little Black also flew over from somewhere, making a sound to let the death god know that it had arrived. The death god saw Little Black and praised it by patting its head. "Well done, Little Black." Little Black was extremely pleased and wagged its tail when praised by its master. Then the death god clasped his hands behind his back and took a step closer to Vong Tru Dien's father, who was lying down. He spoke coldly, "The heavenly champion is dead next." Vong Tru Dien's father was not afraid at all. He spoke frankly, "You win, no loss, no loss." Hearing this, the death god couldn't help but sigh. "You really know yourself. Will you choose to die or surrender to me?" Hearing this, the emperor got up and immediately knelt down, paying homage to the celestial master. All the subordinates of the emperor also knelt down, and in unison, they saluted the celestial master. Vong Tru Dien, seeing this, was extremely surprised. He remained silent for a while, then also bowed and greeted the celestial master. While paying homage, Vong Tru Dien smiled, and his eyes became more lively. He thought, "He is powerful, really powerful. Following him, I will definitely become the champion of the world." The death god turned around and ordered Vong Tru Dien, "From today, you belong to the Tanvan Gate." After he finished speaking, Little Black let out a sharp sound, asserting its dominance over everyone. Little Black now appeared very fierce and different from its previous lazy appearance on the death god's head. Then the death god turned to Little Black and ordered it to go. "Little Black, let's go to the Tanvan Gate." Little Black happily obeyed and let out a sound to express its agreement. Before leaving, the death god turned back to Vong Tru Dien and instructed him, "I don't need to give any more instructions about the next steps. You understand, right?" Vong Tru Dien replied, "Yes, I understand." Immediately after, the death god and Little Black left. The death god and Little Black quickly arrived at the Tanvan Gate. In the main hall of the Tanvan Gate, laughter echoed throughout the room. The death god was sitting drinking tea and talking with Don Tu Luong. Don Tu Luong was very happy, saying that he could not believe that the heavenly champion was not even an opponent for the Tan Van Gate. We will definitely be the champions of the world. The death god, upon hearing this, fell into silence. Although he won against the heavenly champion, he did not become arrogant. He spoke to Don Tu Luong, "Don't be too conceited. A small heavenly champion is not worth mentioning. We should not use the same standards in the human world." Now, Little Black returned to its original small and lazy appearance, and began sleeping on the death god's head again. Don Tu Luong responded to the death god's words with agreement. After that, the death god became very serious and continued speaking. During this time, the expansion of the Tan Van Gate is very significant. We must not take internal affairs lightly. One mistake can cause a lot of damage. Remember this principle. Don Tu Luong quickly replied, "Remember." Finishing the conversation, the death god stood up and told Don Tu Luong, "All right, I'm going to visit my little disciple now." After that, the death god walked away, and Don Tu Luong did not forget to pay his respects to his senior. After the death god left, Don Tu Luong felt extremely happy and thought in his head, "It's great. Everything is going well. Truly great." The scene changes to the Quang family, at a stone pillar where Quang Vo Tien was practicing his staff. Quang Vo Tien tightly gripped the staff in his hand. Then he quickly performed a few basic staff moves, with such speed that wherever the staff went, the leaves were cut in half. After practicing the staff for a while, Quang Vo Tien stopped and clenched his teeth, determined to use his full strength to perform a decisive blow. The staff surged with electrical power, causing it to emit sparks. Quang Vo Tien, with great determination, threw himself forward with his staff, shouting, "Strike!" The sharp staff carried tremendous power, with lightning bolts on it. The staff collided directly with the stone pillar. Quang Vo Tien observes below, but the stone pillar doesn't have a single scratch. He thinks to himself, even after all this time, there's still a slight gap in breakthrough distance. He looks at the enormous stone pillar and tells himself that he must break through to enter the divine berserk formation. He whispers to himself that he must break through to enter the divine berserk formation. Suddenly, a voice echoes in the silent space, announcing. A mysterious person immediately reports to Quang Vo Tien that the divine berserk formation's plan has failed. Hearing this, Quang Vo Tien is stunned for a moment before looking at the person. Then, the person raises a jade transmission and continues reporting that the divine berserk formation has been defeated and killed by the god-slaying formation. On the transmission is an image of Thiet Vo Dick turning to stone and shattering into pieces. This transmission is fancy, being able to transmit both messages and videos, as fancy as an iPhone 15 Pro Max. Seeing Quang Vo Tien's calm and carefree appearance, Tu then wonders how fast this junior's cultivation has progressed. Even though Thiet Vo Dick is just a Hapdao practitioner, among the martial arts world, anyone who is not at least a the Ni practitioner is no match for him. Quang Vo Tien insults the martial arts world's trash, expressing his disappointment. Curious, the mysterious subordinate asks the meaning behind his words. Quang Vo Tien immediately turns and looks straight into the eyes of the subordinate, saying to immediately contact the sword world. The mysterious subordinate, confused by this, asks why a Hapdao practitioner would disturb the sword world. Quang Vo Tien tells his subordinate that a very powerful practitioner has appeared in the martial arts world and instructs his subordinate to pay attention to him. Hearing this, the mysterious subordinate is puzzled. He stammers, wondering why they are concerned with a Hapdao practitioner to the point of involving the sword world. Quang Vo Tien continues seriously, warning that the divine berserk formation has too many mysteries and they should not let their guard down. Otherwise, there will be dire consequences. Even if it's a small matter, they must mobilize sword cultivators. The mysterious subordinate obediently complies and then disappears. After the mysterious subordinate leaves, Quang Vo Tien is left alone. He thinks to himself that even if Tu then becomes stronger, he still won't be able to surpass sword cultivators. Scene change to Tan Van Man. Tu then is observing Li Tin Van's cultivation. He sees how focused and concentrated Tin Van is during his training. Tu then thinks that many young disciples have made great progress. Most of Tin Van's meridians have been cleared at this point. The old man hiding within Tin Van's body is surprised to see Tu then appear. He immediately reveals himself and reports to Tu then about the achievements he has made during Tu than's absence. The old man says, "The master has returned. Recently, I have been doing my best to assist this young disciple." Tiu then glances and calmly says, "I've seen it." Afterward, Tiu then takes out the divine message he obtained after defeating Thiet Vo Dik and looks towards Li Tin Ban. He says, "This divine message is for this young disciple." The old man curiously points to the divine message in Tiu then's hand and asks, "What is this?" Tiu then ignores the old man and immediately sends the divine message of Thiet Vo Dik to Tin Ban. Quickly, the divine message merges with Tin Ban. He continues to focus on his training. Tiu then turns to the old man and instructs him, "You are responsible for consolidating this new divine message." The old man bows and agrees. After giving the instructions, Tiu then turns and leaves. He doesn't forget to say, "You may leave now." The old man performs a salute and sends Tiu then off. After Tiu then leaves, the old man sighs with relief, feeling the tension dissipate. Meanwhile, in a beautiful place with majestic mountains and fresh trees, there is the sword world. Someone is fervently practicing swordplay. Their sword moves filled with immense power, and the sword aura whizzes through the air. A long-haired man is practicing swordplay, surrounded by trees, clouds, and 3 enormous stone pillars behind him. This man possesses a handsome and elegant appearance. His demeanor while practicing is cold and distant, yet extremely captivating. He is Bak Tien Sin. Bak Tien Sin is focused on his sword practice when suddenly his subordinate appears from behind and kneels down to pay his respects. Bak Tien Sin recognizes the familiar face, and a sunny smile spreads across his face as he exclaims, "Ah, it's you. How have you been, Quang Vo Tien?" Subordinate stands up and tells Bak Tien Sin that he has come on behalf of the patriarch. There is a matter that requires Bak Tien Sin's assistance. Hearing this, Bak Tien Sin bursts into laughter and says, "Ha ha, Quang Vo Tien has something to entrust to me? Tell me, I'm quite curious." The mysterious subordinate solemnly tells Bak Tien Sin that his patriarch hopes he can come to the martial arts world and kill someone. Hearing this, Bak Tien Sin ponders for a moment before asking, "The martial arts world, you say?" The mysterious subordinate responds, "Yes, this person is renowned for his martial arts. He is very powerful." Hearing this, Bak Tien Sin becomes very interested. Swordman Bai clasped his hands behind his back and asked again, "What can you say about cultivation?" The mysterious person should answer carefully. Swordman Bai pondered for a while, then he smiled and said to the mysterious person, "I can help in this matter." "Who is that person and how is their cultivation level?" The mysterious person handed a jade transmission to Swordman Bai, saying that all of their information was inside and requested Swordman Bai to keep it. Swordman Bai quickly accepted the jade transmission. Just after watching the jade transmission, Swordman Bai couldn't help but praise and exclaimed in excitement. The jade transmission replayed the images of the battle between God Shao and Champion Tiet. Swordman Bai watched them attentively, very impressed. After watching it, Swordman Bai couldn't help but praise and said, "Indeed, a cultivation genius." Then he turned to the mysterious person and said, "Tell Kang Vo Tien that I will leave immediately." The mysterious person replied with gratitude to Swordman Bai. After that, he disappeared quickly like a gust of wind. Swordman Bai raised his sword and smiled with interest. Then he waved his sword. Then gently retracted his sword. Swordman Bai began his painting. From the empty space where Swordman Bai slashed, a crack in space appeared. The crack grew larger. At a certain place at the foot of the martial world, Swordman Bai was contemplatively observing the surroundings. He clenched his fist and began to exert force. He realized that suppressing the martial world's blade was a terror for someone with high cultivation like him, but he could only maintain it at the peak of Madness Junction. Then Swordman Bai unsheathed his sword and slashed it into the air. A crack in space appeared from the void. Swordman Bai remarked that it wasn't bad. He looked straight at his own sword and continued speaking, "The martial world can only limit my cultivation, but it cannot restrict my sword soul." Swordman Bai took a long breath. Then he exerted force. Dark clouds gathered in the sky and thunder began to rumble. Swordman Bai looked up at the sky and exclaimed, "Indeed, forcibly improving cultivation will violate the rules of the martial world." Based on his current cultivation, it would take a long time to attract the attention of the martial world's experts. Then he contemplated and thought that with his peak of Madness Junction and his sword soul, writing the name of the cultivator Tiu Tan then would probably not be a problem. Swordman Bai looked at the jade transmission and smiled, continuing, "Tiu Tan's physical body is strong and unpredictable. Moreover, their martial skills are even more terrifying. However, facing my sword soul, this poor person won't be able to withstand even one strike." He looked forward and continued talking to Tan Van Man, then Swordman Bai used his incredible speed to move. The scene shifted to the secret room of Tan Van Man. Tiu Tan was meditating. Little Black was also focused on improving cultivation. Suddenly, Tiu Tan felt uncomfortable and said to Little Black, "The smell of heavy waste is too strong." Tiu Tan quickly moved outside to observe the key energy, fearing that a suppressed person had discovered them. No, based on his current cultivation, it would take a long time to attract the attention of the experts in the pre-world. It seems that it's someone sent by Kang Vo Tian. I haven't killed any inferior cultivator for a long time. At this time, outside Tan Van Man, Swordman Bai stood on a hill and observed below. Tiu Tan quickly moved behind Swordman Bai. He also sensed Tiu Tan's presence and said, "So you are Tiu Tan, right?" At this moment, Spirit Tiu Thien has put on the mask of the Fairy King and naturally attracted the sword seekers from the Keen realm. White Sword Knight turned and exclaimed, "Do you know that I am from the sword world?" Spirit Tiu Thien sneered and pointed straight at White Sword Knight, saying, "There's a foul stench coming from you, you are heavy." Little Black on the head of Spirit Tiu Thien also used its hand to cover its nose uncomfortably. Hearing that, White Sword Knight burst into laughter. "Ha ha ha, it seems like you really have a big secret. You already knew that I am a disciple of the sword realm, so you can't escape death today." Spirit Tiu Thien raised his index finger and signaled for a fight, saying, "Come on baby, let the sword seekers from the Keen realm witness the glory of killing a body puppet. However, anyone who truly thinks they can kill me, despise me." Spirit Tiu Thien sneered at White Sword Knight. White Sword Knight remained confident and said, "Although my current cultivation level only reaches the realm of Tao, my sword soul has already entered the realm of spirit. With just a madman like you, how can you resist?" Then he laughed loudly, echoing throughout the forest. Spirit Tiu Thien smiled coldly and said, "You are just a minor madman with a spirit puppet. I can't be bothered to look at you anymore." The Little Black on Spirit Tiu Thien's head also looked disdainfully at White Sword Knight. Hearing this, White Sword Knight became furious. He clenched his teeth and spoke loudly, full of arrogance. White Sword Knight said, "Then let's begin." A tremendous energy began to emanate from his body. He continued to speak arrogantly, "I don't care who's going to show what. But be prepared to pay a heavy price." He released a surge of energy from his body. Spirit Tiu Thien lightly evaded while saying coldly, "Oh, this amount of power from you may have some speed, but it lacks strength." The two of them faced each other, and from White Sword Knight's side, there were always streams of attacking energy towards Spirit Tiu Thien. Spirit Tiu Thien raised a satisfied smile. Then he shouted and chopped at his throat. The energy from him seemed like a sword advancing straight towards Spirit Tiu Thien's neck. Spirit Tiu Thien recognized it quickly. Without knowing what Spirit Tiu Thien did, right after, the attacking energy from White Sword Knight exploded into smoke. Spirit Tiu Thien put his hands behind his back and said coldly, "You are just a trash soul puppet, as expected, you are trash." White Sword Knight was surprised and muttered, "What?" Spirit Tiu Thien continued coldly, "Do you think you have underestimated me? Just a pathetic soul puppet like you wants to kill me?" White Sword Knight was thinking that his sword soul and madness were included in his attack. However, this guy seemed to have suffered no damage. Could it be? Is his killing intent even stronger than mine? At this point, White Sword Knight began to accumulate energy with his two fingers. A purple energy began to gather. He said resolutely, "You will see this time. I will absolutely not go easy on you." His eyes were full of determination. Then he crossed his two fingers together and a violent purple energy burst out from him. Spirit Tiu Thien watched attentively and exclaimed with some interest. Behind White Sword Knight, a sword soul was revealed, shining with 9 stars. It looked incredibly powerful. Then he controlled his sword soul to attack Spirit Tiu Thien. A tremendous power was approaching Spirit Tiu Thien, but he showed no intention of dodging. Spirit Tiu Thien remained focused on observing. The loud bang and a deafening noise, smoke and dust filled the air. The ground and rocks were scattered everywhere. However, after the dust and smoke dissipated, Spirit Tiu Thien still stood tall, with his hands behind his back, and said to White Sword Knight, "Your sword soul is indeed quite good, but compared to mine, it is far inferior." White Sword Knight was greatly astonished and muttered, "What?" White Sword Knight became furious and said, "Who are you?" Spirit Tiu Thien replied coldly, "I am a body puppet. You cannot kill me." White Sword Knight pointed his sword straight at Spirit Tiu Thien, sneering arrogantly and self-righteously, "You are underestimating me too much. A humble sword cultivation wants to kill me? White Sword Knight thought about the spiritual intent from earlier, which included the insanity and determination of his sword soul. But this guy doesn't seem to be affected at all. Could it be? Is his killing intent even stronger than mine? Thinking this, White Sword Knight began to gather energy with his 2 fingers, accumulating a purple energy. He confidently said, I have reached the conclusion. Killing you is absolutely unquestionable. His eyes showed strong determination. Spirit Tu Thien tilted his head and said, You take your sword too seriously. But let me tell you, only sword cultivators are the supreme truth and highest morality in this world. Vowing to prove his point, White Sword Knight showed a spirited expression. Everything submits to the sword. Then you pointed at him, smiled and said, We have a way. Then you pointed at him, smiled and said, We have a way. White Swordsman exclaimed in surprise, Really? Tu Shen asked, Do you still have a sword? Then White Swordsman summoned his sword and said, This sword is a precious and glittering artifact, the Kui product of the 9-grade shining sword technique. Holding the sword in his hand with a determined look, White Swordsman asked, So, are you planning to use sword techniques to kill me? Tu Shen replied honestly, Yes, I also understand some sword techniques. White Swordsman laughed loudly upon hearing that. Then he threw his sword towards Tu Shen and said, All right, let me see how you, with your cultivation, can use a sword. Tu Shen caught the sword. He began to feel and observe the sword, praising it as a very good sword. Tu Shen thought, I remember the holy sword once gave me a set of sword techniques. It seems to be the Tula technique, which is different from normal techniques. It doesn't require a soul in the sword, only infinite killing intent. The stronger the killing intent, the stronger the sword technique. But I only remember the Blood Phoenix technique. However, it should be enough to deal with this wretched man. Thinking this, Tu Shen swung the sword, gazing straight ahead. He coldly said, Come at me. White Swordsman appeared extremely interested as he replied. Then he started to adopt his stance and said, This sword is called the Heavenly Thousand Swords. With that, White Swordsman let his sword fly straight ahead, soaring through the air. The tip of the sword is now very close to Tu Shen, but he stands still, observing. Then Tu Shen gently swung a sword to block White Swordsman's sword. An explosion occurred, causing the ground around them to crack. The energy ball from Tu Shen's previous strike made the cracks even larger. Tu Shen coolly said, The Heavenly Thousand Swords are too weak. White Swordsman, feeling worried, thought, This wretched man is too strong. He can resist my Heavenly Thousand Swords only with his killing intent. It seems I can't underestimate him anymore. At this moment, Tu Shen and White Swordsman are facing each other. White Swordsman said, The inherited sword techniques of the Bai family are categorized into 3 types. The first type is created by the ancestor, called the Bai martial sword technique. With that, he started to swing his sword towards Tu Shen. From one sword, many sharp blades emerged, pointing straight at Tu Shen. Tu Shen quickly turned his sword horizontally to prepare to block the attack. The two of them began to exchange blows. White Swordsman's sword pierced through Tu Shen's clothing, causing him to exclaim in surprise. White Swordsman swung his sword, causing Tu Shen to be flung far away. Tu Shen tumbles in the air before landing on the ground. Tu Shen, holding his injured arm, said firmly, Very strong. White Swordsman, annoyed, clenched his teeth and said, You managed to avoid it? Tu Shen replied, Your sword technique is very fast, and your power is also strong. However, the inherited sword technique from my family, the Kili #1 sword technique, unfortunately, cannot harm me. He said arrogantly, Yes, this technique is indeed fast, but its attack power is somewhat weak. Tu Shen continued, Therefore, based on this foundation, my father created a new technique from scratch, the Unity of Kill Intent sword technique. With that, Bak Tien Sin began to adopt a stance, preparing to execute his move. His gaze determined, he raised his sword straight toward Tu Shen. Tu Shen, surprised, muttered, Blood has been shed. His injured hand tightly grips the wound, blood dripping slowly. Tu Shen embraces his injured arm and says with strength, Very powerful. White Swordsman, gritting his teeth, says, You even managed to avoid this? Tu Shen responds, You can harm me with this technique. White Swordsman confidently replies, This technique has extremely powerful killing power. But its accuracy lacks a little. If the accuracy were a bit stronger, the pierced area would have been your throat. Then he closed his eyes and many swords formed from his hand. He released the swords towards the target, startling the target. Immediately, the target used his own sword to block the swords created by the White Knight. But these swords were extremely sharp and powerful, causing the target's clothes to be torn. The White Knight smiled cunningly and said, "Hee, dance, Snowflower." Then he rushed towards the target, using the sharp swords he created to injure him, causing a lot of blood to flow. The White Knight shouted, "Die! Let me show you my heaven-defying sword technique." The target carefully dodged and avoided his swords. The target sneered coldly. Then he began to use his bloodthirsty sword technique, his eyes determined. Behind the target, a figure appeared, holding a large sword. The person exuded a powerful aura. The White Knight exclaimed, "What is this?" The target swung the sword towards the White Knight, who struggled to block it. The powerful strike shattered the White Knight's sword, and he was thrown back. He could only scream in pain. Then he fell to the ground, feeling immense pain. He lay on the ground, bleeding from his abdomen and mouth. The target approached, his sword also stained with blood. He coldly said, "This is the toothless sword technique, which can even surpass the power of the divine turtle technique. If I had the chance, I would love to learn the divine sword technique," the target said, looking into the distance. He then looked straight at the White Knight and said, "There's no need to pretend anymore. Earlier, I couldn't shatter your soul, but now I can." The White Knight slowly opened his eyes and smiled. He said, "You even know about that." He got up and said, "I'm really curious about your identity." With that, he took a pill and swallowed it decisively. The effect of the pill was amazing. It allowed him to recover, and he stood up and continued, "I may not be your match forever, but you also can't kill me. Although powerful, you are only a member of the Toby sect, not a divine being level expert. You can't shatter the soul of a divine expert." Hearing this, the target fell into deep thought. The White Knight nonchalantly dusted off the dirt on his clothes and smirked. He pointed straight at the target's face and said, "That's why I'm in a dilemma. When I leave, the entire sword world will hunt you down." The target lifted his sword and said, "You're not wrong. So now I have a headache," said the White Knight, still proudly smirking. At this moment, Tiu Hack jumped down and landed on the target's shoulder. It barked and smiled slyly. Tiu then was astonished. Then, the two servants began whispering to each other and laughing mischievously. Tiu then looked at them in surprise. After some discussion, Tiu then stood in front of the White Knight and said, "If I reveal my secret, can you spare my life as a cultivator?" The White Knight laughed and mocked, "Your cultivation technique is not very impressive. You're just begging for mercy. Go ahead, I'm listening." Tiu then pointed with his finger towards Tiu Hack, who winked and smiled. He said with a mischievous tone, "Tiu Hack has something to say. Tiu Hack has done something.